Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Gates channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and hit like for more daily drama updates and spoilers. Your support truly means a lot and helps our channel grow every day. Now, let's jump straight into today's exciting update. It was the beginning of another explosive week in Fairmont Crest, but beneath the calm surface, danger, deception, and long-buried secrets were already beginning to collide in ways no one could have imagined. The fallout from the shocking events of Friday, July 31st, still lingered over the community like a storm cloud refusing to drift away, leaving everyone uneasy and wondering what disaster would strike next. Every conversation carried hidden meaning, every glance hinted at suspicion, and every familiar face seemed to be hiding another layer of the truth. As Monday, August 3rd unfolded, the atmosphere became charged with anticipation, promising betrayals, risky investigations, and revelations that could change lives forever. It was the kind of day where even the smallest decision could send shockwaves through Fairmont Crest, and no one would escape untouched once the truth finally emerged. Determined to uncover answers for herself, Catherine "Cat" Richardson decided she could no longer sit back and simply trust what others were telling her. The lingering questions surrounding Randy Parker had grown impossible to ignore, and after everything that had recently unfolded, Cat believed it was finally time to dig beneath the surface. Quietly and carefully, she began watching Randy's every move, convinced that if she remained patient enough, she would eventually uncover the evidence she was searching for. In her own mind, the plan seemed flawless, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone certain she could outsmart the man she was investigating. Yet there was one dangerous detail Kat couldn't afford to overlook. Randy was no ordinary man stumbling through life. He was a seasoned henchman who survived by recognizing threats before they had the chance to strike. If Kat underestimated him even once, her quiet investigation could quickly become something far more dangerous, placing her directly in harm's way before she even realized she had been discovered. While Kat pursued answers from the shadows, she wasn't the only seemingly kind-hearted resident quietly setting plans into motion. Mona Wilson also found herself on the hunt, although her mission carried a very different purpose. Monday's development suggested Mona would begin scheming as she worked to hustle Joey Armstrong, creating another intriguing layer of mystery that left everyone wondering what she truly hoped to accomplish. Was she approaching the powerful casino owner in hopes of securing another generous charitable donation? Or was her real objective something far more personal? Perhaps Mona intended to confront Joey about his decision to employ Randy, believing he deserved to answer for placing the troubled man in his current position. Unlike many others who viewed Randy only as a dangerous criminal, Mona still believed there was goodness buried somewhere beneath his rough exterior. She saw a man who had lost his way rather than someone beyond redemption, and perhaps she hoped that if Joey offered Randy a different kind of opportunity, a legitimate career instead of the darker work he currently performed, his entire life could begin moving in a better direction. Whether Joey would be willing to listen remained uncertain, but Mona wasn't prepared to give up without making her case. Elsewhere in Fairmont Crest, another storyline quietly gathered emotional momentum as Bill Hamilton found himself carrying a burden that had become almost impossible to bear alone. Secrets have a way of growing heavier with every passing day, and Bill seemed to be reaching the point where silence was no longer an option. Monday's spoilers hinted that he would unexpectedly choose to confide in someone few people would ever expect, raising immediate questions about who would become the keeper of such explosive information. Could Bill reveal to, Thomas Navarro that he had shared a shocking one-night stand with Kat's aunt, exposing a deeply personal mistake that carried potentially devastating consequences? Or would he instead place his trust in his assistant, Caroline Lee, despite how incredibly awkward and professionally inappropriate such a confession would be? Neither possibility seemed particularly wise, making Bill's decision all the more surprising. Whoever ultimately became his confidant would suddenly find themselves carrying knowledge capable of disrupting multiple lives, proving once again that in Fairmont Crest, secrets never remain buried forever. As Bill wrestled with his own personal turmoil, another group of women prepared to piece together a puzzle that had become impossible to ignore. Danny Dupree joined forces with Anita Dupree and Vanessa McBride as the three women gathered to compare notes, each bringing their own observations and suspicions to the conversation. The focus of their discussion seemed destined to revolve around Haley Hamilton and the growing whispers that she might not be as devoted to Bill as she claimed. Rumors of possible infidelity had begun spreading through Fairmont Crest, and with each passing day, the speculation only intensified. Everyone seemed to have noticed something unusual, and now Danny, Anita, and Vanessa were determined to examine every clue, every inconsistency, and every unsettling feeling that had led them to suspect something was terribly wrong. Sometimes the truth begins with nothing more than shared instincts, and as these women exchanged what they knew, the possibility of exposing something far bigger became increasingly real. The tension surrounding Haley had already reached dangerous levels long before Monday arrived. Ever since she was discovered at the spa during Bill's latest medical emergency, her relationship with his daughters, Naomi Hawthorne and Chelsea Hamilton, had continued to spiral downward. Distrust quickly evolved into open hostility, and during the week of July 27th, the conflict became so intense that Bill himself was forced to intervene, asking his own daughters to leave his home in an effort to restore some measure of peace. The emotional wounds created during those confrontations had never truly healed, leaving Naomi and Chelsea deeply skeptical of nearly everything Haley said or did. Every interaction now felt like walking through a battlefield where even the smallest gesture could ignite another painful confrontation. The fragile relationships inside the Hamilton family were hanging by a thread, and no one knew whether they could ever be repaired. That fragile balance would be tested once again when Haley unexpectedly surprised both Naomi and Chelsea in ways neither woman could anticipate. Perhaps she would genuinely try to extend an olive branch, doing something thoughtful not only for Bill but also for his daughters, hoping to prove that her intentions were sincere despite everything that had happened between them. Such an act of kindness could leave Naomi and Chelsea momentarily speechless, forcing them to reconsider whether they had judged Haley too harshly. Yet in Fairmont Crest, appearances often hide much darker realities. Just as easily, Haley might shock them for an entirely different reason if they happen to witness her doing something suspicious behind closed doors. A single unexpected moment could completely change the way they viewed her, reinforcing every fear and every doubt they had struggled to ignore. Whether Haley's surprise would soften hardened hearts or deepen existing suspicions remained one of Monday's biggest mysteries. Even so, an even darker truth loomed just beyond the horizon, threatening to eclipse every other storyline unfolding throughout Fairmont Crest. The latest spoilers warned that Haley's carefully constructed deception was rapidly approaching its breaking point, and the moment of reckoning could arrive much sooner than anyone expected. The elaborate plan she had secretly been carrying out, the horrifying scheme to eliminate Bill once and for all, could not remain hidden forever. Every lie, every calculated move, and every carefully disguised motive was slowly unraveling, bringing her closer to complete exposure. Once the truth finally emerged, there would be no way to undo the damage or erase the betrayal that had been set into motion. As Monday's drama reached its breathtaking conclusion, one thing became painfully clear: the countdown to Haley's downfall had officially begun, and when her shocking plot finally came to light, the lives of everyone connected to Bill Hamilton would be changed forever. As the invisible walls surrounding Haley's carefully manufactured world continued to close in, the pressure mounting around her became almost impossible to ignore. Every smile she forced across her face seemed just a little less convincing, while every carefully chosen word carried the weight of someone desperately trying to stay one step ahead of the truth. Although many people still saw only the polished image she projected, cracks had already begun to spread beneath the surface, threatening to expose everything she had worked so hard to conceal. Fairmont Crest had a way of bringing hidden sins into the light, and history had proven time and time again that no secret could survive forever within its tightly connected community. With suspicions growing from every direction, Haley was unknowingly walking a dangerous path where one careless mistake could trigger a chain reaction that would destroy everything she had built. Naomi Hawthorne and Chelsea Hamilton, meanwhile, found themselves caught in an emotional struggle that reached far beyond simple family disagreements. Their relationship with their father had already been tested repeatedly, but Haley's arrival had opened wounds that refused to heal. They still couldn't forget the painful confrontation that forced Bill to ask them to leave his own home, a heartbreaking moment that left both daughters feeling rejected at one of the most vulnerable times in their lives. Even if Haley suddenly appeared with gestures of kindness or unexpected compassion, years of instinct and recent betrayals made it incredibly difficult for either woman to lower her guard. Trust, once shattered, was not easily restored, and every interaction with Haley now felt like a carefully balanced game where every smile, every apology, and every act of generosity could easily hide a deeper agenda. That lingering uncertainty ensured that no matter what happened next, Naomi and Chelsea would continue watching her every move with cautious, skeptical eyes. At the same time, Danny Dupree, Anita Dupree, and Vanessa McBride were quietly assembling pieces of a puzzle that was becoming far more disturbing than they initially imagined. Their conversation wasn't driven by idle gossip alone. It was fueled by instincts sharpened through experience and by growing evidence that something wasn't adding up. As each woman compared her observations, overlooked details suddenly began fitting together with alarming clarity. Small moments that once seemed insignificant started forming a much larger picture, leaving them with the unsettling realization that Haley's behavior could no longer be dismissed as coincidence. Every unanswered question seemed to point toward a hidden truth waiting to be uncovered, and with each passing minute, their determination to expose whatever was really happening only grew stronger. If their suspicions proved correct, they wouldn't simply be uncovering another scandal. They could be standing on the edge of exposing a crime capable of devastating multiple families. While those suspicions continued to spread, Bill Hamilton remained trapped inside a battle of his own making. The burden of carrying deeply personal secrets had begun to weigh heavily on him, and the emotional exhaustion was becoming impossible to disguise. Confiding in someone, especially someone unexpected, might offer temporary relief, but it also carried enormous risks that Bill understood all too well. If he admitted the truth about his shocking one-night stand with Kat's aunt, there would be no taking those words back once they left his mouth. Whether he entrusted Thomas Navarro or Caroline Lee with that explosive confession, the revelation had the potential to send shockwaves far beyond his own personal life. In Fairmont Crest, private mistakes rarely stayed private for long, and even the smallest confession often found its way into the center of much larger storms before anyone had a chance to contain the fallout. Elsewhere, Kat Richardson's determination remained unwavering. Despite the growing danger surrounding her investigation, she believed that every suspicious movement Randy Parker made brought her one step closer to uncovering answers that others either couldn't or wouldn't find. Yet, the deeper she ventured into Randy's world, the greater the risk became that she would attract the attention of the very man she hoped to expose. Randy wasn't simply someone with questionable judgment. He was experienced, calculating, and accustomed to dealing with people who underestimated him. He knew how to identify threats, eliminate loose ends, and protect those pulling the strings behind the scenes. If Kat made even the slightest miscalculation, her quiet surveillance could transform into a deadly game of cat and mouse, one where she might discover far more than she ever intended and where escaping safely would become far from guaranteed. At nearly the same time, Mona Wilson continued pursuing her own mission with a sense of quiet determination that reflected both compassion and courage. While others focused on Randy's darker reputation, Mona refused to believe that his story had already reached its final chapter. She saw someone who might still be capable of redemption if only the right opportunity appeared at the right moment. Her decision to approach Joey Armstrong carried more emotional significance than many realized because she wasn't merely asking for a favor. She was asking someone with influence to believe that a damaged man deserved another chance. Whether her efforts centered on discussing charitable causes or convincing Joey to offer Randy legitimate employment, Mona's actions revealed her unwavering belief that people weren't always defined by the worst decisions they'd ever made. It was a hopeful perspective in a town increasingly consumed by suspicion, betrayal, and hidden agendas. Yet, despite every individual struggle unfolding across Fairmont Crest, all roads seemed destined to lead back to Haley and the terrifying secret she was desperately trying to keep buried. The warning signs were becoming impossible to ignore, and the countdown toward her inevitable exposure had already begun. Every suspicious glance, every whispered rumor, and every unanswered question pushed the truth a little closer to the surface, making it increasingly unlikely that her dangerous scheme would remain hidden much longer. Once the full reality of her alleged plan to eliminate Bill Hamilton finally came to light, the consequences would be catastrophic. Relationships would be shattered, loyalties would be tested, and the people who believed they understood one another would be forced to confront a betrayal far darker than anyone had imagined. As another unforgettable chapter prepared to unfold, one haunting question lingered over Fairmont Crest. When the truth finally exploded into the open, who would survive the devastating fallout and who would lose everything?